Good morning, everyone. We're just about ready to get started with our little short sale mastery introduction to short sales. Could someone please write in the chat that you can see my screen and hear me okay? Anyone? Oh, perfect. Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Eduardo. So you can see and hear me okay? Wonderful. Great. So here's what we're going to do, folks. I'm going to give it maybe 2 or 3 more minutes before we get started, because there's always folks that are coming in at the last minute. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad we're good to go. Here's what I'm going to do. I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. I move fast and furious because I know that this is a tough medium to keep people's attention. My goal is to take no longer than an hour, absolutely no longer than an hour. Included in that hour will be a Q&A session where I want to answer as many questions as humanly possible for you all. You just need to type those questions in to the chat area. When you type them into the chat area, I'm not going to stop during the program to check for questions because that's kind of distracting. It throws everybody off base. So what we'll do is I'll just, go right to the very top of the questions list and start firing away. So you can type them in as you have them. Let me see what else. I think that's basically it. The other question that comes up is what happens if you have to leave early? You'll catch the whole thing. There will be a replay, and because you were here, you will receive the replay via email from me a little bit later this afternoon, if not early evening. So just sit tight if you could, just maybe 60 seconds more, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. What I'm going to cover today is, are we in for another wave of foreclosures? And what does that mean to our real estate industry? And what does that mean to real estate agents as far as from an opportunity standpoint? So let me go ahead and begin by introducing myself. There are people on the call that have never been to any of my programs before or even know who I am. So it's just a quick introduction. My name is Tony Martinez. I am a licensed Florida real estate broker. There's probably agents on the call from other states, but this was really targeted and marketed from a Florida perspective because I want to go into some details about the Florida foreclosure process and insights that I think can be very valuable to you, and even more valuable, of course, if you're a Florida real estate agent. I've earned the title of Master Short Sales Instructor because of what I've been able to accomplish over the past, 12 years. See, if you were licensed back in 2008, 2009, you know what happened in our country, right? You know what happened with the mortgage defaults and the Great Recession that we had. Well, I actually had the opportunity to go around the country teaching real estate agents. I was part of an amazing organization that created the most powerful short sale training program ever. And I was privileged to be one of their instructors. And I toured the country for almost 2.5 years. During that time, I probably trained maybe 8,000 to 9,000 agents on how to do short sales effectively. And then when I settled down and became a broker, I never lost the passion for it. And short sales never went away. Foreclosures never went away. They just stopped being front page news. And now that we are seeing all of the signs, at least that's my belief, and I'm going to make that case with you, I've revved everything back up, and now we're developing a whole new army of agents that are going to be in a great position to go out there and help folks. I do generic real estate training as well. I'm proud to be a coach for Accelerated Breakthrough. And there's my email address, shortsalemastery@gmail.com. Should you want to reach out to me directly with any questions or comments, I'd love to get them. So what are we going to cover today? Are we in for another wave of foreclosures? I'm going to make the case that we are. Okay. Does that mean we're going to have an opportunity to make more short sales? Maybe, maybe not. What are short sales? Let me teach you some basics, because the newer generation of agents, ones that have been maybe licensed for only the past few years, you haven't been through what the old timers went through back in the day. So you're not familiar with what foreclosures necessarily are, and especially what short sales are. Now, what is my motivation? Am I just a great guy that's just out here working for free? No, I don't think you guys work for free, or you shouldn't. So one of my motivations is to introduce you to an amazing group coaching and training program I created called Short Sale Mastery. And this is how I'm reaching out to real estate agents across the country, teaching them all about short sales and how to build their business through short sales. It's all done via Zoom. I figure if I give you enough content and a lot of great tips and information, that you won't mind if at the very end of this presentation, I take 2 or 3 minutes to share with you how you can take your training to another level. I think that's a fair trade. And if you stick with me all the way to the very end, I'm going to give you a bonus lead generation tip on what you can do immediately starting today to start going out there and prospecting for distressed property listings. All right, let's get started with a disclaimer. I am not an economist. I'm not coming out here because I have all this amazing knowledge about the economy. I can read, and I can read the signs, and I can see what's going. And I'm going to share some of these with you, and then you're going to make up your own mind, right? Because at the end, you don't have to necessarily agree. I can make an amazing case, and you can say, yeah, Tony, hey, thanks, but you know what? It ain't going to happen. I don't believe it. Not for me. Good luck. Okay, that's cool. But here's what I can't stand, right? I can't stand people that are taking another approach, and I'll share that with you in a second. The question I'm asked almost every single day, are we in for another wave? Are we in for another wave? Are we in for another wave of foreclosures? Well, I like when people ask that question, because it's contrary to what so many people are doing. The fact that you're on this call, that means that we're in sync, that you think something's going on, that you think something may be happening, right? That's going to lead to something like this. You know how many people I talk to every day that this is the approach that they're taking? And some of these are brokers, very successful brokers, friends of mine, respected people. And their approach is, no, man, nothing's going to happen. It's going to be okay. The government's not going to let it happen. The banks are not going to let it happen. And you know what? My approach has always been control what I can control. All right. There's some of the things I can't control, but I'm going to be ready no matter what. If it doesn't come, praise God. You know what? At the end, I'm not hoping it comes. I'm just preparing in the event it comes. And I think that's just smart. It's just smart to be prepared. So what is going to drive another potential wave of foreclosures? Simple. The pandemic. The pandemic. Because look, foreclosures never went away. For those of you that are like me, that are into that segment, we always keep tabs on what's going on across the country, and especially in our state, right? Florida has always led the nation in foreclosures. We typically are in the top 5. Pre-COVID, in fact, in March, pre-COVID, we were actually number 2 in foreclosures nationwide, and that was before COVID. Okay, but see, back in the day, back in 2008, what drove the disaster were those bad loans, right? Those adjustable rate mortgages, and they were resetting, and all of the problems that came with subprime lending. That's not the case now. This is being driven by unemployment. Let's face it, millions upon millions have either lost their jobs or had their incomes or their paychecks significantly reduced. The great news is that we're recovering. Yes, you can't argue that we're recovering, because the numbers don't lie. You know, we're all entitled to our own opinions, but not our own facts. The numbers are the numbers. But for a lot of people, it's not going to come soon enough, or it hasn't come to them. See, one of the things that I am in 100% agreement with is that this particular crisis is going to hit lower income households. The higher income, middle income, they were probably able to work from home. They were probably able to weather the storm. But the ones that in the service industry and many businesses that could not work remotely, and look, Florida, for crying out loud, we're driven by tourism. We're driven by services, right? We have been especially hard hit. So the catalyst this time around is going to be unemployment. What does that lead to, right? Well, you have probably seen articles like this. As many as 40 million Americans may lose their homes. Now, this is a combination of owners, but renters. That's going to be one of the biggest issues is what's going to happen when all these moratoriums end, these individuals that are renting, right? And they cannot pay their mortgage. Now, speaking of mortgages, these are the latest numbers. And I love CoreLogic because they really, really hit right. And what timing this came in today. I got the email today. I went in right away. So it talks about delinquencies, right? You know, when you have 30 days or more past due, right now, August of this year, 6.6 versus 3.7 last year. You see how it's almost double? Now, these numbers over here, yes, they're rising, but nothing spectacular. But look over here. 120 days late. This is significant. When you get to 120 days late, you enter what is called the serious delinquency category. This is critical because once folks get that far behind on their mortgages, they typically do not recover, right? Anybody can miss a payment or two and maybe get back on track. You miss 4 payments, it starts to get bad. Look at the number, 3.2 versus 1%. Now, actual foreclosures are still down against last year, but this is artificial. And I'm going to explain why in a second. Next, look at the serious delinquency map as far as metropolitan areas. You see all that? Again, compliments of CoreLogic. All the red means that delinquencies, serious delinquencies have increased. Look at the red on there. Look at Florida. Basically, all of Florida has seen an increase in serious delinquencies. Look at this right here, serious delinquency rates by state. We are 1, 2, 3, 4th in the nation. New York is number 1, New Jersey, number 2, Louisiana, and Florida being number 4 in serious delinquency rates, folks. I'm not making these numbers up. These are numbers you can check yourself. So what does all this mean, right? Well, look what happened. Today, I went to Realty Track. Again, timing is everything because up until yesterday, they still had September's numbers up there. So for October, right? Take a look, Realty Track. I love this site. Go to realtytrack.com, and that's realtytrac.com. Go into the area that shows stats and trends, and you click on foreclosure. Last month, we were 2nd in the country. This month, right now, or as of October, we are 5th in the nation when it comes to foreclosures, okay? 5th in the nation. So you can see what's going on. And this, again, this is only the tip of the iceberg because this is an artificial number. Now, I decided to go ahead and click one more step in, and that is, let me see what's going on at the state level. And here are the top counties. Highlands County is number 1, okay, right now, currently number 1. Now, you see the bigger counties in the state, they haven't chimed in yet, okay? They haven't chimed in yet. So this is all going to start to come together, I predict, the beginning of next year. Why? Because the moratoriums that are in place protecting against foreclosures are going to be lifted. See, when this whole thing started, the governor and governors, they put moratoriums in place. But on a federal level, there's also moratoriums. Example, Fannie and Freddie, FHA, they are not doing any foreclosures through the end of the year. That means everybody that has a Fannie, Freddie, or FHA loan, which is a significant percentage of the market out there, there are no foreclosures being initiated right now, right? And to top it all off, even though that the Florida moratorium was basically lifted or eased significantly, the CDC imposed their own. The CDC basically came in and said, you know what, we don't want a bunch of people moving in and out of properties during COVID. Stop foreclosures. So in Florida, what is happening right now is everybody's sitting on their hands. All these delinquencies are building, right? They're going past the 120-day mark. And then what happens is that as soon as these are lifted, the process will begin. See, technically speaking, the bank could begin foreclosure right now, but they can't terminate it. In other words, you can start it, but you can't finish it. So the banks are going, why even start it? Let's just wait. Let's just wait until the moratoriums are lifted, and then we'll go in fast and furious with tens of thousands of foreclosure cases, right? Yes, this will lead to another wave of foreclosures. Let me explain something else to you, because a lot of folks don't understand this. When COVID started, the federal government passed a law called the CARES Act. The CARES Act, if they had a Fannie and Freddie loan, they could get 6 months of forbearance, meaning they didn't have to make their payments for 6 months. All right. And what happens is during those and then after the 6 months, they could extend it for another 6 months. So I want to go back here for a second here and see if I can find this slide, because I think you guys will find this interesting. It's right here, and okay, this is the Metropolitan here. Yeah, I don't have it, because there was one here that basically said exactly the same thing, where it talks about how forbearance has been holding people at bay, but what's going to happen is that the forbearance agreements will eventually be lifted. So here's what's going to happen, right? Let's fast forward a little bit. The first 6 months of the forbearance agreement expired. Certain people came off, they went back to work, they're good to go. A lot of people stayed and renewed for another 12 months. Now what's going to happen is, fast forward to about March or April of next year, the 12 months are going to expire. Now these folks are going to have to face a couple of decisions, right? What's going to happen with the 12 months that they haven't paid? Well, chances are the government, because these are government-sponsored entity loans, are going to step in and maybe do something where maybe that they could put the loan, the amount on the back of the loan or something like that. Let's hope something like that happens. But they're not going to be able to do that if they can't make their payments going forward. So are they going to be able to prove that they're able to make their payments going forward? That's going to be tough to do if they're unemployed. You see where I'm coming from? And that has nothing to do with all the other type of loans and private lending and everything there, that none of this is protected by the CARES Act. So yes, without a doubt, a huge wave of foreclosures are coming. So then people say, well, is it going to be as bad as it was in 2008? I don't have a crystal ball. I think in some respects it won't be, but in other respects, there's so many things that are uncertain, right? We're all hoping and praying for the vaccine, for things to get back to normal. But what if there's another lockdown? What if there's, you know what I'm saying? There's so many things that are uncertain. Many of the jobs that were lost are not coming back. Many of the businesses that were closed, shut down, and failed, they're not coming back right away. So where are those people going to go to work? I'm sorry, man, this is just the facts. And then people say, well, does that mean that we're going to get another wave of short sales? And this is why I'm doing this class, because people don't understand what triggers what. So for example, excuse me, if we're going to have another wave of foreclosures, it doesn't mean that we're going to get another wave of short sales, because there is more equity now than there was in 2008. You know what happened back then is property values almost overnight dropped significantly. Immediately, people were underwater. Well, that should not be the case this time around. So let's explore this, because when people argue with me, this is usually the point. They say, well, it's not going to be like it was because people have equity. And I go, look, listen to what I'm saying. Read my lips. They may have equity, but they still need to sell. Okay. If they're not working and they can't make their payments, they're going to need to sell. Well, if they have equity, then that's going to be a regular sale. Well, you guys all know how to do regular sales. I'm not going to teach you that. But what about for the percentage, the certain percentage, which none of us know what percentage that is, that do not have equity? What are they going to do? If they're going to sell, it has to be a short sale, right? And let's not pretend that the people in the lower income categories have a ton of equity. All right? That's not true. That's not true. It's not true on so many levels. If somebody bought their home in the past 1 to 3 years and they bought it using FHA, they only went in with 3.5% down. They didn't have a lot of equity to begin with. Let me ask you this. How many missed payments, like for example, 12 missed payments, would it take for them to eat away at almost all, if not all, the equity that they have? And that's not including what could happen to property values. I'm not even talking about property values coming down, but maybe we should. Look, right now, we have no inventory, right? People get whatever they want for a property. But when all these foreclosures come on the market, do you think there's a possibility that the minimum, the appreciation will slow down? Yeah. Maybe even stagnate? Yeah. Maybe even go back a little bit. Who knows? So here's my feeling. Why not be ready for both? If you know you're already ready for short sales, regular sales, you got that covered. Why not be ready for short sales as well? Now you'll be even better positioned. Sun Tzu's, in the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. For what? Opportunity to help distressed homeowners. First and foremost, let's help as many people stay in their home as we can. That should be first and foremost what we do. When people reach out to you, man, make sure that they've explored all of their options for staying in their home. But if they can't, help them to exit with dignity. Well, as a result of you doing good, you'll do well business-wise, right? You can grow your business. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with helping people and helping yourself as well. So let's start, okay? Someone approaches you right now and says, I'm losing my home. What do I do? The first thing I try to educate my students on is become familiar with the options available to stay in the home. You, at the very minimum, want to make sure that people have explored these options, right? Like one that hardly ever happens, but they're able to reinstate their mortgage. That means they're only 2 or 3 months behind. They got a job. They're able to make their payments going forward. And a friend or family member gives them the money to pay the mortgage to get current. It can happen, not often, but it can happen. Forbearance, that's a different type of forbearance. That's where, I give you an example. You're 6 months behind. You're okay now because you got your job back. You go to a lender and you say, listen, those 6 months that I owe you, can we spread those out? Can we spread them out maybe over 2 or 3 years and just add that to my mortgage? And if they say yes, and you can prove that you can make the mortgage payment, including the additional amount, then you work out a forbearance with them. Refinancing, yeah, if you have equity, but if you don't have a job, you're not going to qualify. And if you don't have the credit score, you're not going to qualify. And loan modification is basically a whole new loan to reduce, to kind of incorporate the payments that you missed and everything. Well, again, I always say the following: you can't get an MOD, a mod, if you don't have a JOB. So much of this is going to be centered around their ability to pay. So if this has been explored and they've looked into every single one of these and none of these are an option, then we can proceed. Now, I hope you're going to take notes here. All right. Don't just rely on the recording. Take notes. Hold on. One of the areas I find the agents are very weak in, and they're trying to engage in this arena is they don't know how to dangle the carrot or brandish a stick. In other words, you have to be able to go to someone that's losing their home and explain to them why walking away is not an option. Why just let the bank take the property is not an option. And then you have to be able to give them some hope for what would be less destructive or, disruptive to their futures, right? So this is what I cover in my course called Foreclosure Consequences. And I always teach my students, commit these to memory. Because when you're face to face with someone that's being emotional, not being logical, you have to be able to reach in your quiver, pull out an arrow and say, yeah, I understand, but what about this? Ready? Because there are significant consequences to letting a foreclosure occur. Let's talk about the future. They want to buy again in the future. Everybody wants to be a homeowner again, even for folks that lost their homes. Well, here's the first thing. They will be ineligible for a government insured loan for up to 5 to 7 years if they have a foreclosure on their record. By the way, a foreclosure stays on their credit report for 7 years. Now, if they do a short sale, it only stays, they can probably buy again in as little as 3 years. My wife did exactly this. She's an amazing short sale practitioner, and she helped a couple. In fact, they were actually divorced. And, one of the husband said, I love how you handle this. When I'm ready to buy again, I'm going to come call you. He had to wait 3 years to the day. And at that 3 years, we connected him with the lender. We got him pre-approved. He's in his own home again now. Who wouldn't want the option to be able to buy again in as little as 3 years? Now, for the rest of their lives, when they go in to fill out a mortgage application, it could be 20 years in the future. They're always going to have to answer yes to the following question. Have you ever had a foreclosure or deed in lieu? See, it doesn't say in the last X number of years. It says, have you ever? And forever, they'll have to answer yes. The dirty laundry will be aired every single time. Their credit scores will take a major hit, costing them money on everything that they buy. Remember I mentioned that foreclosures stay on your credit report for 7 years? How long does a short sale stay? Well, here's the thing. There is no category called short sales in a credit report. Right off the bat, it's a huge benefit to them. What else? Well, getting a job, keeping a job. With so many people out of work, employers have tons of people applying for the same position. So how do you thin the herd? Run the credit. Everyone has had a bankruptcy on there or a foreclosure. Thank you, but no thank you. What if the job has to do with handling money? Well, they may not want you handling their money when they feel that you didn't handle your money properly. You see where I'm going with this? Maybe it doesn't cost the job you have now, but it could cost a job you always wanted. What about a job that requires a security clearance, like so many do? Military, government positions, TSA, law enforcement. If you can't get your security clearance because you have a foreclosure, or you lose your security clearance because you have a foreclosure, how is that going to help them? So one of the first things I teach my students is let them know. Why don't you speak to your HR? Why don't you speak to your superior and find out if a short sale, you're still good. And many times in the case of a short sale, they're able to continue with their lives, continue with their job, or get employed. Now, this is huge. This is huge. Florida is a deficiency state. What does that mean? Well, in a foreclosure, the bank's going to lose money, right? They're not going to recover what is owed. And then they got all these expenses on top of that, right? All their legal fees, cutting the grass fee, keeping the pool clean fee, all this stuff like that. In Florida, they have up to 1 year to file a deficiency judgment. In other words, they can go to court to try to get a claim in their favor to have a deficiency judgment issued against the former sellers. And it could be for tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it actually applies to both short sales and foreclosures. People don't know that, but it does. But here's the difference. Remember, that's the stick. You don't want to live with that hanging over your head. You don't want to have a year of sleepless nights wondering, is today the day the bank decides to come after me, right? Because maybe 8 months later, 9 months later, you're doing much better. And now they figured now's a good time to come after them. Well, here's the news about a short sale. In a properly executed short sale, I mean properly executed short sale, the lender waives the right to come after the seller. That's huge. Knowing that right at closing, peace of mind, it's over. This nightmare is over. They cannot come back to me afterward. Now, what about taxes? We all love paying them, right? Do you know that in our country, when somebody forgives debt, the government considers it income? Mm-hmm. You got a credit card you owe 20 grand to? You get a company that negotiates that down to 10 grand? You're happy, right? Well, come January, you get 1099 for how much? 10 grand. You just got $10,000 worth of income, additional income to report. Now imagine in a foreclosure where the bank loses $300,000. They don't recover $300,000. A year passes, they don't go after you. They can't go after you. Essentially, it's forgiven. You're going to get 1099 for $300,000. That's maybe your best income year ever. So what does a person do? Well, the first thing you want to do is, since you're exposed, no matter what, you're exposed whether it's a short sale or a foreclosure, let's make sure the bank recovers as much as possible. Why is that important? Well, because the more the bank recovers, the less they lose. The less they lose, the less they report. The less they report, the less you report. So where am I going with this? In a short sale, the bank typically recovers much more than they would in a foreclosure. That's why they do short sales. The banks are motivated to do short sales not because they're nice. They do it because they recover more money, because they lose less money. That's what's in it for folks. Is there a federal protection? There used to be a law. It ended in 2012. It's gone. So now someone that's vulnerable, someone that's susceptible to this, they have to seek the services of a professional of a qualified tax professional, one that has experience filing Form 982, using the insolvency rule to help them out. Can't get into something that deep here, but obviously it's something we can cover in a lot more details later on. Now, you can't do short sales effectively if you don't understand the process of foreclosure, because if you don't understand the process and timelines, you won't know whether you have enough time to even engage the short sale or not. So let me share some great stuff with you on how Florida handles foreclosures, because even though short sales are the same all over the country, what is different is the individual states' foreclosure processes, okay? So let's start with the fact that it is a process. It's not a one-time single event. It doesn't happen overnight. It has to go through a legal process. When does it begin? Well, kind of technically, it begins on day 31 of you not making your payment. See, when you miss your payment, that grace period of 30 days is day 31, all the bells and whistles start to go off inside the lender, not in the court. It's not public knowledge yet. And in the bank, the servicer, they do everything they can to kind of connect with the folks, right? They start making phone calls and the borrowers don't answer the phone, and they mail letters and nobody answers or even opens the envelope. So what happens is, after a set amount of time, the lender gives up and says, we have no choice. We have to initiate foreclosure. Now, all of the attention is given to mortgage default, but you know that you can be foreclosed on if you're not making your HOA condo payments. In fact, they're one of our biggest enemies, because HOAs are the quickest to foreclose because they want to take over that property. If they take over that property, they have title, they can rent it out, and then they rent it out for pure profit. How long can they have it? Who knows? How long will it take the lender to come around and foreclose against them? 6 months? A year? In that time, they pocketed a lot of money. Now, Florida is a judicial state. What does that mean? Well, in order to be foreclosed on, they have to file through the court system. They have to file a complaint, and they have to follow the legal process. Some states are non-judicial. Some states are both. Florida is very borrower friendly because the plaintiffs, the lenders, have no choice but to go through the court system, which can take longer. It does take longer. All right. So what happens? All right. They don't make their payments for 120 days. Now, legally, because there's a federal law that says lenders cannot initiate foreclosure unless the borrower is at least 120 days in default. Now they begin the process. It could be right at 4 months. It could be 5 or 6. Now they go in, they file a complaint, they file a motion, and it's probably going to be granted because they know what they're doing, right? They do this for a living. And so at that point, a less pendants is going to be issued against the borrowers. And the borrowers have to be personally served. That means someone knocks on their door, hands them the paper, you're now served. Now, that could be a dance in and of itself, getting a hold of these people. But once served, they have 20 calendar days to respond. If they were to respond with something like, hey, man, this isn't right. This doesn't make sense. This isn't me. This isn't right. You know what I'm saying? These are all non-technical terms, non-legal terms, because I'm not an attorney. It slows the process down. But to not respond at all, and look, between me and you, most never respond. It speeds the process up. And that's a shame. That's a real shame. Look, I'm going to share another secret with you, okay? Don't tell anyone. But by the time they get to you or you get to them, they're normally past all of these stages. I'm sharing them with you just so you know, just in case, in that rare case that you find someone early in the process. But most of the time, this is come and gone. So what's next? Notice of hearing for summary judgment. This isn't served. This is mailed to them with a date to appear. Guess what? They don't appear. Most don't. Remember, by the time they get to you, you get to them, this date's already passed. But if it hasn't passed and it happens on your watch, get them to the courthouse. Or right now, it's actually get in front of the Zoom, right? Because it's their last chance to plead their case for more time, all right? In other words, if they go in front of the judge and say, look, we're trying to do a short sale. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to get out of this with the least damage to us as possible. We just need time. They stand an excellent chance or decent chance of getting approved for that extension. If they don't even show up, the next step is the sale date. And that's where it all ends. When there's a sale date and it goes to auction, most of the time the lender just takes the property back. They just take it back. And they say, no, we can get more if we sell it as an REO. So at that point, it's too late. The old homeowners are gone, right? People ask me all the time, well, I've heard that there's this thing called a redemption period. Not in Florida. Florida isn't like Michigan or Minnesota. Michigan or Minnesota, you know that the foreclosure happens much faster, right? But then after the foreclosure, after the sale date, the banks can't recover the property. They can't take the property back for a year. The bank has to sit on their hands for a year. Well, not in Florida. After 10 days, the sheriff will issue a new certificate of title, and that's it. Title transfers back to the bank, and the sellers, they're gone. They're out. That point is too late for them to even consider hiring you. They lost the house. So, for those that need to sell and don't have equity, now we're talking. Now we're talking short sales. I call them the sweet. Okay, this is the analogy I've used for years. Agents seem to really understand and resonate with this, especially newer agents. Imagine if listings grew on trees, and the sweetest listings, the equity ones, you know, the ones with equity and the owner decides they're at the very top of the tree. You go into your first listing presentation as a new agent, you're staring at the top of that tree. You came unprepared. You're not ready for battle. The next agent that has a little bit more experience walks up to you and says, can you step aside, please? And they brought a big old ladder with them. Obviously, they've been there before. Now, the third agent that the seller interviews shows up with a cherry picker. Beep, beep, and they get the listing most of the time. And here's what I tell my students, and here's how I encourage people to look at short sales, okay? Look at short sales as the low-hanging fruit that's right there, ready to be picked, and everybody's sidestepping it. Why are they sidestepping it? Because you know what's happening out there. You know that most agents have no clue what a short sale is. Most brokers have no clue what a short sale is. Most brokers discourage their agents from working short sales because they don't want them coming to them with questions that they can't answer for them. So stop doing interviews in a sense that you're doing a dog and pony show trying to get the job. In a properly executed short sale listing presentation, you're interviewing them. They're not interviewing you. When I teach my students how to do a short sale listing presentation, they have all of the power, all of the leverage. They're the ones that are there in a position to help the folks. It's up to the folks to sell them on the idea. Please hire me. And I got to believe most of you, if not all of you out there, would be okay with that shift in power. So let me give you a quick short sale 101, okay? And then you decide. You decide if you want to go ahead and know more or not, all right? What is a short sale? All right. Let's start with the premise that the property must be underwater. You can't do a short sale if the property has equity. It's a regular sale. So the first thing is you determine is how much you owe and how much can you sell it for. If it's underwater, then you can list it as a short sale. You get a contract on it. It's sent to the bank to review, or banks if there's more than one loan. If the bank says yes, it's approved, they will go ahead and release the title and allow the sale to happen. Sounds simple, right? It ain't. It takes experience. It takes skills to do this. Does everybody get to do one? No. Here are the qualifications that the banks are looking for from a seller. And here, write this term down. Ideal candidate. Use it in your presentations. You'll think of me every time. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. The goal is to determine if you are an ideal candidate for a short sale. The first thing is, do you have a hardship? What is a hardship? Some kind of significant change that took place from the time that you bought the home until now that now prevents you from paying it back. You see, something had to change. The Spanish version is ¿qué pasó? Right? So did you lose your job? Is your income reduced? Was there a death in the family? Are you too sick to work? Do you have tons of medical bills? Are you BK? Did your business shut down? You see where I'm going with this? They have to prove that something happened to them, and they do it by writing a hardship letter. You don't write it, they write it. That's the first thing they look for. The next thing they look for is prove to us that you can't make the payments. So that means you have to disclose all of your financials. Show us that your expenses exceed your income. Prove to us that you have more month at the end of the money, right? And the sellers have to cooperate fully. No hiding, no cheating. Full disclosure is required. What if they're so far so good, right? Then the third one is, can you prove that you're insolvent? That means you lack enough assets or any assets to pay down or pay off the mortgage. Essentially, a fancy word for broke, right? The ideal candidate isn't sitting on a ton of cash in a savings account or checking account. But some of them may have a significant IRA or 401k. And people always tell me right off the bat, Tony, can they seize that money? Absolutely not. It's protected. IRAs and 401ks cannot be seized. But they can factor that in to the decision whether they want to approve the short sale or not. Somebody with a significant amount of IRA assets or 401k assets, retirement assets, may, I repeat, may be asked to provide a contribution. In other words, bring some money to the table. all of this has to be negotiated, right? All of these issues are negotiated during the process. Now, let's say I've made a decent argument and you want to know more. You say, listen, this is an area I want to know more about. Okay, what can you do? Go to your broker, well, you know, there's hardly any classes out there. There's hardly any decent training out there. So that's why I stepped up and created Short Sale Mastery, right? And this is the way I structured it so that it makes sense. It is group coaching. Right now, I'm teaching a class. In fact, it's the only Spanish class really even offered in short sales. And I have about 27 students that are on the call with me. And they're there with me 5 2-hour sessions for 5 consecutive weeks. So it's a total of 10 hours of training that I break up into 5 Zoom calls, 2 hours each. All right. Now, I record every single session. And that's wonderful because not everybody can make every class. I have people that couldn't make any class at all. But because it was recorded, they still got all the content. The night before each session, I send out a link to download the workbook. And then the day of the course, in the evening, I send out the recording. I bring in panelists such as a professional short sale negotiator. See, because I know that's one of your questions. Well, Tony, who does the negotiations? Well, it shouldn't be you. It should never be you unless you're one of the rare breed that actually knows what they're doing. Leave it to the professionals. Well, foreclosure defense attorney is an integral part of your team in giving you time. Because I'm building a community, because I'm building an army, I have a private Facebook group so that we can stay in contact with each other even after you graduate my class. And then people will say, okay, what do you talk about? Well, my goal is to make you a short sales listing machine. I want to turn you into a short sales listing master, A through Z, how to price it correctly, what contracts. See, this next class coming up, this next series is a Florida series. What does that mean? It means that because I'm a Florida broker, I'm able to go into much more detail about the contracts and addendums and answer questions that you don't get answers on. We deal with all strategies for delaying the auction date. I teach you how to overcome the seller objections that come up during the presentation. Of course, we discuss the issue of who pays the commission. How do you build a short sale dream team? Who are the members of this dream team? Then you get a chance to interview my short sale negotiator. You get a chance to interview my foreclosure defense attorney. If you want to work with them, great. If you don't, that's up to you. But now you'll be in a better position to interview others. As a bonus, I teach you how to work with buyers in a short sale. I teach you how to prospect, how to market yourself so you can generate leads. Are you getting the picture? A through Z, A through Z. My next course, my next 5-week series is starting Tuesday, a week from today, November 17th. Everything I just shared with you, everything. And I personally teach it. I do not delegate it to somebody else. You have me for those 10 hours. It's $3.99. But wait, there's a webinar special for putting up with me for this hour. You get $100 off. You get the price down to $2.99. I'll show you how you can get that price in a second. Just remember, we start next Tuesday, 1 to 3 p.m. It's going to be 5 consecutive Tuesdays, 1 to 3 p.m. Now, to get that $2.99 price, go to my website. Go to shortsalesmastery.com. By the way, I'm going to show you a bonus marketing tip in a second. Go to shortsalesmastery.com. Enter this discount code right here, SSM100, SSM100. That brings your cost down to $2.99, $2.99, SSM100. Okay? Now, write this down. This is how you can go generate some leads right away. Here's a strategy I teach on pre-foreclosures. Work backwards. Well, what does that mean? your prime candidates for a short sale, okay, or any other people that are in foreclosure are people that are your A category. Who is your A category? Because I want you to divide your prospects into 3 categories: A, B, and C. A are people that have sale dates already. They're the ones that have the least amount of time and definitely don't have any excuses. You want to focus on them first. The second category, B, are folks that are officially in the foreclosure process. That means it's already showing up in public records, but they don't have a sale date yet. Okay, the clock's ticking. They just don't have a date yet. The C category, these are the ones that are going to take the longest to make a decision, and that's because they're still hoping that something can get worked out, right? These are folks that are behind on their mortgage, but foreclosure hasn't officially started yet. Now, the foreclosures always are filed in whatever county the property is in. So you got to go to your circuit court site and see if they have their calendar there of foreclosures, where you can start looking up dockets, okay, and sale dates. Here's another tip. If you use IMAP, I'm also Realist, but I'm very familiar with IMAP. If you go into IMAP, there's 3 different ways you can do a search. You can do a search by either MLS, by tax, or by foreclosure. So you can start there. Now, what I really recommend for those of you that are really, really serious is to go